My name is Ray McNeil, and I'd be lying to you if I told you that retirement is a dream. It's like sitting on a park bench and watching everything go by, except without the bench, because the bench can be taken away from you, just like everything else. I live in a town near Columbus, Ohio. My house is a 3-room house built in the 60s. The water heater is noisy. The roof started leaking last year, and when it rains, I put pots on the floor, like every other normal senior citizen in this country. My wife, Joan, died 3 years ago. She died of cancer, as she was gone in 6 months, like a candle burning out. Since then, I've been living alone. My daughter Kathy lives in Cleveland, works from morning to night in a bank. She calls, well, when she remembers. And every time she asks, "Dad, how are you?" And every time I lie. "Everything is fine, dear." But it hasn't been good for a long time. I wake up every morning at 6, just like I did 30 years ago when I drove a school bus. But now I have nowhere to go. I sit here, drink coffee, and count coins. My pension is enough to pay for electricity, some food, and blood pressure pills. But not to live. It's enough to survive. And even for survival, just barely. Oh, I'm not complaining. I'm just scared. Yes, I'm Ray. I'm 68, and I'm afraid. I'm afraid to live to see the day when I can't get out of my chair by myself. When I will be useless to anyone. And most importantly, when I have nothing to live for. When Joan was alive, we used to dream. When we retire, we'll go to Florida, rent a trailer, sunbathe fish, and play bingo with the same crazy old people. And now that I can't even subscribe to a newspaper, because every cent goes to the pharmacy. And then, one day, in the pharmacy, I hear 2 men talking about a club for those who are retired but don't give up. Manaw. They talk about investments, monthly income, group meetings, new opportunities. One said, "I invested $10,000 and I already get $1,000 a month." And he laughs like a Hollywood actor. And I stand between the shelves with vitamins and catch myself thinking, why not me? I walked home slowly. I was carrying a plastic bag of medicine and thinking, maybe it's some kind of sect. Maybe a scam. Odd. And then I remembered how Joan and I had been saving for years. How I changed the oil on the bus myself to save money. How I gave up weekends to have a pension. And now what? I retired and I live worse than a homeless person on YouTube. At home, I sat at the kitchen table for a long time. I opened an old notebook where I write down my expenses. Everything is Klern bread, $3. Electricity, $70. Pharmacy, $119. 250 left. That's enough for a month. And then, for the first time in a long time, I did something not according to the notebook. I wiped my hands with a towel, put on a shirt, and went to the meeting, the address I overheard at the pharmacy. There were 10 people in the library. All of them were grandparents, as if they were from my neighborhood. An odd one man in a dark blue jacket, Michael white-toothed smile, stylish shoes. He spoke in such a way that I forgot how old I was. He talked about free life after 60, passive income, economic dignity for those who have worked all their lives. I looked at him and wanted to believe. He showed me slides, graphs, tables. He said, "We are not a foundation. We are a community. We help each other. And profits are just a bonus." I don't know what exactly bribed me. His words, his look, the fact that I was alone. But when I returned home, I was already holding a business card in my pocket with the inscription, Bank's Investment Group. The future starts now. I didn't know then that the future was indeed beginning. But not in the way I had imagined. Because sometimes the future is something you never want. And something you can't turn back from. If the devil really exists, he wears an expensive suit, smells like sandalwood, and smiles in a way that makes you think he's your best friend. And his name is Michael Banks. The next Tuesday, I went to the meeting. For the first time in a long time, I shaved, put on a fresh shirt, even slapped on a little collar. It felt like something was going to change. What do you know how it is before a thunderstorm? The air is heavy, but there is something alive in it. The same faces were sitting in the library again. Pensioners, hunched over, but with a twinkle in their eyes. Something was keeping them afloat, and I wanted to know what. And then he walked in. Michael Banks is not just a name. He is a brand. He looks about 45. His hair is perfectly cut, his eyes are bright blue, and he has a smile like a TV presenter. He wore a cashmere coat and a watch similar to those that sell for several thousand. He came out to us, and the room froze. The old even junior, the old man who always grumbled about politics, sat quietly like a mouse in a trap. "I'm glad to see each and every one of you," Michael began. "And I'm even more glad to see those who are here for the first time. No, it means that you haven't given up yet." And I sat up straighter. Banks Investment Group is not just another fund. It is, in his words, a family where everyone invests in everyone else. Michael spoke quickly, confidently, and with humor. He showed slides on the projector, blue lines that always went up. The average payout is $1,200 a month. Some are up to $2,000. You will invest $5,000, and in 30 days you will receive your first check. No banks, no taxes, no risks. And everyone clapped. Old hands clapped on even older palms with such enthusiasm as if he had restored their youth. But I was not completely mesmerized. I saw one man in the corner of the room whispering to his wife. I saw Michael avoid the question about the license. And I noticed how quickly he switched from safe investment to economic revolution. But when he came up to me after the meeting, all my doubts became as soft as marshmallows. "Ray, really? I was told you were new. Listen, I see potential in you. You're the kind of person who doesn't sit around and do nothing, and I respect that." I don't know why I blushed, but his gaze made me feel warm. "We have a starter package. Of $5,000 is not just a deposit. It's a ticket to a new life. I will personally make sure you get your first payment next month." I nodded, automatically. At home, I sat in my chair for a long time. I opened the safe. I counted my savings. There were old bonds, some cash, and a small insurance policy from Joan's death. In total, a little over $7,000. That is, I could get 5 out. And then I heard silence, and I realized it was the worst sound I ever heard. Not thunder, not quarrels, not neighbors, but this kind of empty silence that makes you remember that you are alone, and that no one will take care of you if you are not alone. So I took the 5,000, and I went back to the library the next morning. Michael met me with the same white, toothed smile. He handed me the form. Everything looked official: the seal, the signature, even the QR code. I signed it. And when I gave him the envelope with the money, he put his hand on my shoulder and said, "You've taken the first step, Ray. Now, just wait and get ready for change." Little did I know that change was not always for the better. Because in a few weeks I would find out that 5,000 was just the beginning, and the worst was yet to come. When you're 68 and you have more money in your account than you've had in the last 10 years, you either celebrate or check to see if you're dreaming. I chose the former, and that was my first mistake. The first payment 32 days later, I checked my account every morning like a teenager checking social media likes, and there it was, $1,348. I was shaking, and not from the amount, but from the fact. I invested 5,000, and I've already gotten almost a quarter of it back, and I hadn't worked a single day. The next week I bought a new mattress. Anna, the old one, had been sitting there all the years after Joan's death, and it was creaking even when I breathed. I also enrolled in a dance class for the elderly. Salsa. Yeah, can you imagine? Old Ray, who can barely bend, going to salsa. But I didn't care. In the second month, the account received $1,523. I didn't ask why it was more. Michael told me that the profit was growing, and I believed him, because I wanted to believe. Because when you had nothing, you want to hold on to something, even if it's as slippery as an eel. I started getting up in the morning. I started cleaning the yard. I even cut roses for the first time in years. Yeah, and then, you won't believe it, I found my closet with summer clothes and pulled out my old white pants, which Joan used to call resort pants. And at that moment I thought I was living again. The phone rang on Sunday. It was Katie, my daughter. She sounded worried. Dad, I looked at your bank transfers because I still have access to your account. You have some. Receipts there. What is it? I lied. I said it was a compensation for the insurance policy. She was silent. Dad, I don't want to pry into your life, but these things are not free. Tell me honestly, is this some kind of investment? I laughed. I played the old fool, and I said it was nothing serious. Dad, this smells like a scam. I was offended. And that was the second mistake. When children begin to consider you incapacitated, you either fight or run away. I chose to fight, and that meant hiding even more. On the third month, I didn't receive the payment on the usual day. I didn't panic. I just thought it was a technical delay. In the evening, I called Michael's office. A voice robot answered. Leave a message and we'll call you back. I waited for 2 days. Then I came to the library. But instead of familiar faces, there was only an empty room and a sign saying, Seminar postponed. On the fourth day, I couldn't sleep. I called Junior, one of those who applauded the loudest. He did not answer. I called the other 3 with whom I had sat at the first meeting. Their phones were disconnected or out of range. It was only then that I sat down and looked at myself in the mirror for the first time. I looked better, but inside I was empty. Because I knew that Katie was right. But that meant I was wrong. And I lost. And now I had to admit it to myself. But I didn't know that money was not the worst thing I could lose. Because Michael Banks will appear again. And this time with a new offer. One that will change not only me, but my entire family. It hurts when your daughter looks at you not as a father, but as a client with a dubious credit history. But it hurts even more when you start to realize that she might be right. Dad, can I stop by for coffee? Katie said that morning. Her voice was even, but I already knew the tone, professionally polite. She talks like that to clients who are trying to hide their debts. I couldn't say no, and I didn't want to. A part of me still wanted her to see that I was not an old fool, I was on a horse. But another part of me, deep inside, was already itching to tell her. Katie sat with her cup of coffee, not touching it. She just looked at it, from beneath her forehead. Like a prosecutor staring at a lying witness. Dad, I Googled the company you deposited money with, and it's not on the SEC's registry. Are you sure they're legit? I turned to the window. I'm not a Katie. That's enough. I'm not an idiot. It's an investment club, not a pyramid scheme. She sighed. You're not an idiot, Dad. But scammers are very good at talking to people who want to believe. I was choked up. The words were cutting into my throat. I've worked for 50 years. I have the right to some peace. And you just control me like a child. She was silent. Then she said quietly, I just don't want you to be left with nothing. You haven't even checked them out. Is there a website? And that's when I decided that I would prove to her that everything was fair. I turned on my laptop and opened the browser. I entered the name of the company. The page was loading. Then a message appeared. The site is temporarily down. Please try again later. Something collapsed inside, but I quickly covered the screen. See, it's just technical work. It'll be back up tomorrow. Katie looked down at me again. This look was between sadness and fear. Dad, I love you. If you're hiding something, tell me now, because I'm going to find out. I stood up. My voice was loud, sharp as ever. You don't understand. This isn't just about money. This is my chance to feel like somebody again. I was nobody, Caddy. After my mom, I was a shadow. And now I dance, I sleep, I live. And you want to take that away from me. She lowered her eyes. Then she said, I don't want to take your life away from you. I want you to have a real life, not an illusion. She stood up, kissed me on the cheek, and left. After that evening, I tried to log into the site 3 more times. Each time I got the same message. I wrote to the post office. There was no answer. I called Michael's old number. The number is out of service. But I didn't give up. I didn't want to admit even to myself that it could all be a lie. I believed in Michael, in the way he held the microphone, the way he looked me in the eye. And most importantly, I believed that I mattered again. And the next morning I received a letter, an ordinary envelope with no return address. Inside was a brochure with a new logo, a new name, but with the same face of Michael. And the signature, a new start. Same team. And I did the worst thing I could dog. I went to the address. Alone. Trust is a strange thing. It's hard to earn, easy to lose, and almost impossible to regain. Especially when one of the people you trusted just disappears. Oh, without explanation, without saying goodbye, without even a damn text message. That morning I woke up earlier than usual. The sleep was heavy, like a concrete blanket. Something was itching in my brain, not letting me rest. Not a website, not an email. It was Bill Weston. My neighbor 2 doors down. We weren't friends, but we crossed paths at the supermarket near the watermelon section about twice a month. And he also attended the club meetings, and he was the first to wink at me during the presentation, saying, "I think there's something here." I went out on the porch with a cup of coffee, a familiar ritual. But something was wrong. An AA truck was parked outside Bill's house. People were taking out furniture, a wardrobe, a TV, even his favorite chair with a worn handle. I approached a young man in a cap. "What's going on? Is Bill moving?" We were just given an address and a list of things. "The owner is not here. Everything's already packed." I stood there as if I had been punched in the stomach. Without warning, no call. Bill, moving. Not even a goodbye. I pulled out my phone. I called Michael. The voice on the other end was the same, friendly, a little hoarse with the same TV tone. "Oh, Ray, good afternoon, my friend. To what do I owe the pleasure?" Bill Weston. He's disappeared. His house is empty? What happened? A pause, but not a long one. Yes, Bill moved to Florida. He said he wanted to be closer to the sea. And he has money thanks to our club. I didn't answer right away. A light bulb went off in my head. A faint but stubborn light. "And you didn't know he was moving?" Michael laughed. "Ray, people with money often make spontaneous decisions. Life is short. He's happy, that's all." But something in that laugh no longer seemed sincere to me. After the conversation, I stood by the window for a long time and looked at Bill's empty yard. The weeds by the mailbox, the perfect circles from the grill legs on the grass, the oil stain from the old pickup truck. Everything still smelled like him. But Bill himself was gone. And then I remembered one evening. We were standing outside the supermarket, and I said something about easy money, and he replied, "Where it's easy, there's always something wrong. But if you succeed, it will be enough for your old age." And then he abruptly changed the subject. I returned home. I went to the mailbox, where the same letter with the new logo and address was lying. I opened it again. I read every word. The font was different. The signature is electronic. The phone number is not the same as before. And then I thought clearly for the first time, what if it's all an act? A sudden success. Neighbors who disappear. Phones that are silent. A website that is being repaired. Letters without addresses. It's like I'm being led like a calf with a blindfold on, and I applaud myself. But at the same time, I didn't want to believe that I was deceived. I'm old, but I'm not stupid. I was listening, analyzing, checking. Wasn't I? I thought again about the mattress, about dancing, about a woman named Sandra with whom I had recently waltzed. She had a light gait and a voice like crunchy bread. It was real, wasn't it? The next morning I received another envelope. But this time it was from Katie. It contained a statement the name of the company, Club Vita, had disappeared from all registers. It had disappeared altogether, as if it had never existed. And in the corner of the letter was a short note in her handwriting. "Dad, I'm afraid this is not the end. This is just the beginning." There are moments when you just want to scream. Not so that someone can hear you. But just so that you don't get torn up inside, because everything you believed in is disappearing. Like the office on the corner of 3rd and Main. That morning I woke up before sunrise. Since the night had been rough, I dreamed of blurry faces, shrinking walls, and Bill whispering something but not sounding. I poured myself a cup of coffee, put on an old jacket, and got in the car. It was a 20-minute drive. The Club Vita office was a white building, 2nd floor, a sign with a blue logo and a door with frosted glass. But this time the door was open wide, and inside it was empty. Not a single table, not a single chair, not even a coffee maker. Only dust, a crumpled napkin on the floor, and the smell of a cheap air freshener. I stood there like a ghost in my old shoes and couldn't believe it. I went downstairs and asked the security man, what about the office on the 2nd floor? Wasn't that where Club Vita was? He just grimaced. Those. They moved everything out a week ago, quickly. And screaming. The building owner said they hadn't been paid for months. A few months. I asked again, feeling the ground slipping away from under my feet. Yeah. Once they gave me a check without a cover. Then they disappeared altogether. You wouldn't be surprised nowadays. I went outside, took a breath of air. It was bitter, like undone coffee. I got in the car and drove to the park where the club pensioners usually gathered. There, on a bench by the fountain, were 2 familiar faces, George and Lenny. I approached them slowly. They were talking in a whisper. When they saw me, they froze. Hi, guys. Have you heard anything about Michael? Silence. Only the fountain bubbled as if mocking. George, Humdig, what's there to hear? He's gone. Lenny looked down. His fingers trembled like someone who hadn't touched stability in a long time. I sold the house, he said quietly. Well, I didn't understand at first. What? I sold the house to invest in this. Michael said he'd get it back 3 times over. I believed him, and now I'm living in a trailer, Ray. A fucking trailer. It was like an electric shock. Lenny was a former teacher. He had pictures of his grandchildren. He collected stamps. He played chess every Saturday. And now, and the trailer, and tears in his eyes. From a grown man. I just wanted a little more. For myself, for my children. For dignity. His voice broke. George just nodded silently. And I realized they had lost everything. All of them. Not just me. I looked around. The park, the trees, the elderly people with thermoses. One and every face are as if someone had taken out their soul and put a stone. Powerless, broken, devastated. It was not a club. It was an army of the deceived. I sat down next to him. Silently. We just sat there and looked into the water like a mirror in which we didn't want to see ourselves. Maybe they will find him, George tries to say. But his voice does not sound like faith. No, it sounds more like a prayer that you say just in case. I remain silent. The thought pounds in my head, if he fooled us, how many others? How many Michaels like him are walking around smiling now? In the evening I returned home. Katie was waiting for me. In her hands was a printout from her email. She held it up like evidence of a crime. Dad, she said. Michael Banks is a pseudonym. His real name is Jewel Mercer, and he's been to jail before. For fraud. Twice. My eyes darkened. No, this was no longer just bad luck. It was a war, and I had to decide what to do next. Not all losses are loud. Sometimes the biggest ones are quiet. Like when you're standing in line with the cheapest loaf of bread, your eyes are moist, and the world around you seems to be made of cotton wool. And suddenly you realize that the life you had is not coming back. It was bitter to sell the car. Although it's old, it's my own. I have memories associated with it, trips to the lake with my wife, Katie's first driving, my last vacation in nature. I gave it away for a pittance or almost for nothing. But I had to survive. Because I had less than $300 left in my account, and there were gas bills, medicine bills, and the fear that this was not the bottom. I applied for several jobs as a security guard, in a warehouse, even at McDonald's. But as soon as I heard the words, "And how old are you, Hughes?" I lost all hope. Well, call you back, they would say with false politeness. But no one called. I, a former electrician with 40 years of experience, was no longer needed. I was angry at Michael, at myself, at a world where old people are left with only promises, as empty as the refrigerator in my kitchen. At night I didn't sleep. I lay there and listened to the tap dripping. Every drop is like a hint. Your time is up, old man. On Saturday, I gathered all the coins I had and went to the supermarket. I wanted to buy something simple, something that would last for a few days. I had $5 in my pocket. On the bank account, minus 37. And another letter from the bank reminding me that the use of overdrafts is no longer allowed. I took the cheapest white bread, the one that gets lost among the others, just like I did among the young and confident. In the line was long. In front of me was a man with a cart full of organic food, cheeses, and expensive wine. Behind me is a teenager in a school uniform, and suddenly he touches my shoulder. "Excuse me, but are you Mr. Hughes? You taught me electricity in the 9th grade. I turned around. The guy was about 20 years old, hair, backpack, smile. I recognize his eyes. Yeah, I taught. I answered, trying to collect myself. But he blinks in confusion. Wow, cool. Are you? I still working. I swallow the lump in my throat. No, not anymore. Oh, I see. Well, hang in there, Mr. Hughes. You were a great teacher. And, he turns away, looks at his phone, and forgets me within 5 seconds. And I'm standing there, with one loaf of bread. And the tears are running down my cheeks without my permission. When the cashier called the price, I gave her a handful of coins. She was counting for a long time. Somewhere in the middle, I heard her sigh. Like, what a hassle. I could not see the faces of the people around me, and only bread crumpled, wrapped in cellophane, and the feeling that the world had fallen on me with my whole body. I was walking slowly. The wind threw dust in my face, but I did not wipe it off. I let it be. Maybe someone will pay attention and see that I am in pain. It's dark at home. I don't turn on the light. I sit down at the table, put down the bread, and just look at it. How much does humiliation cost? Less than $2. That's how much this loaf is. In the evening, Katie calls me. I don't answer it. I don't want her to hear my voice, which now sounds like rust on old metal. Hoarse, uncertain, alien. I think about the times when I was someone. When I had respect, dignity, a place in the world. And now there is silence, and shrinking walls, and then a knock on the door, quiet but insistent. I get up, I open it, and I see her, Linda. She was at the meeting. She was sitting in the 3rd row, always with a scarf even in summer. Ray, she says, I know where he is, and I have something. But we have to be careful. She holds an old folder in her hands. There's fire in her eyes. And for the first time in a week, I feel something other than shame. It's hope. What if the main enemy is not so guilty? What if the one who stole everything was also a pawn? And the truth is hidden between the lines of a notebook that smells of tobacco, lies, and fear. That night, when I was about to go to bed, there was another knock. This time it was not Linda. This woman was younger. 40 to 45 years old. A brown hair, dark jacket, deep wrinkles around her eyes, which seemed to have been silent for a long time. Are you Ray Hughes? She asks without preamble. I nod. My name is Jenny. I did. I know Michael. I did. Once upon a time. We're sitting in the kitchen. She doesn't drink tea. She just puts an old leather-bound notebook on the table. The pages are yellowed and burnt in places, as if someone wanted to destroy it but didn't dare. This is his diary. I found it in my apartment, after he disappeared. I thought about handing it over to the police, but I couldn't, because I was with him, and I believed him too, for a long time. I opened the first page. There is only one sentence. What people want most is hope. That's what I sell. I read for the next few hours. My eyes are tired, but I can't stop. The diary contains everything. How he created the company. How he chose his words. What stories he told. How he analyzed pensioners who were lonely, who had lost someone, who just wanted something new. He describes a meeting with Meg, Ray, sad, weak, a perfect target. But something lives in him. Danger, perhaps. But then the strange begins. Mentions of leadership. About those above. That he did not create everything himself. They said, "We give you the model, and you give us the face." I accepted. Perhaps in vain. But it's too late to refuse. They. Who are they? I continue flipping through. The text contains notes, dialogues, even drawings of some schemes, amounts, bank accounts, names, codes. Some are crossed out. On it, others are underlined 3 times. On one of the pages, there is a mention of Katie. Katie Hughes, daughter. Has suspicions. Works in a bank. Could be a problem. In parentheses, a connection through Clara. Clara was my late wife. I freeze. What does that mean? Did they know each other? Before she died, I suddenly remember Clara hiding something. Bills she didn't show me. Phone calls that would end when I walked into the room. I feel like I'm getting an electric shock. I close my notebook. My head is buzzing. The ceiling is pressing down. Jenny looks at me with pity. I don't know who these people are, Ray, but Michael. He was trapped too. They had him on the hook. I saw him change. How afraid he was. What was he afraid of? I asked. She shrugs her shoulders. You have no idea how much money has gone through this system. It's more than just cheating pensioners. It's a scheme. It's deep. They touched politicians. Crypto. I think I'm going crazy. I thought it was simple. There is a thief. There's a victim. And now, is Michael a criminal or a puppet? Is my wife a loving woman or something else? I'm confused. But something is changing in me. For the first time, I don't want to feel sorry for myself. I want to dig deeper. And if it really is more than just one man, I will expose it. I will help, I tell Jenny. But we have to be careful. She pulls out an old envelope. There's an address in here. A man in New Jersey. He was in this scheme, too, at one time. He got out, disappeared. But I found him, and he seems to be waiting for us. I pick up the envelope. There is only one word on Grayson. Sometimes the end doesn't look like the end. He is silent, waiting around the corner when you give up. And then, bam, he comes back and pulls you back into something that seemed to be long gone. I was sitting in the kitchen, looking at the toaster and thinking how cheap the bread smelled. Katie showed up without calling. She didn't smile. No, not at all. May I? She asked. I don't say anything. She sits down. For a few seconds only her breathing is heard. Dad, there are things I should have said earlier. But I couldn't. I look at her. Her eyes are the same as Clara's, full of regret. Do you remember the day I asked you about the company? And I already knew. We were checking a few suspicious transactions at the bank. The name of the company was the same as the one you had in your papers. I felt something tighten inside me. So why didn't you say anything? My voice was harsh, almost alien. Because you were happy. For the first time in years, you went dancing, you were laughing, and I thought maybe it wasn't so bad. Maybe I'll get over it. I laughed. Not because it was funny. Did you get away with it? I sold everything, Kathy. I was living on a lie, and you knew. She wanted to say something, but I held up my hand. I couldn't hear any more. Though this truth wasn't the worst I had learned in recent days, it hurt differently. This is not about money. It's about trust. And then, the doorbell rang. The postman. An old acquaintance. He held out an envelope, white, official, and I from the tax service. And I thought, that's it, that's the end. But when I opened it, my heart almost stopped. A will. Michael Banks. Recipient Ray Hughes. I stood there like a stump. Katie took the document, ran her eyes over it. This is a real document, Dad. Notarized, legitimate. I snatched the sheets from her. I read it again, and then again. I, Michael James Banks, in the event of my death or disappearance, leave all residual assets and material resources, including those that have been confiscated or frozen by the U.S. authorities, to Mr. Raymond Hughes as compensation for damages and trust. Compensation. Is that all? My head is a mess. Is this a joke? A trap? An atonement? Katie shakes her head. It says here that there's an account in Liechtenstein, if an and another in Miami. If at least some of it is recovered, you can live again. But I am not happy. My chest feels empty. Because I don't know who I am anymore. A victim and hire. And a complice. What if Michael planned it all? What if this gesture is just another manipulation? What if I'm the one who's going to be made to feel guilty? I look at Katie. What if it's a trap? She shrugs her shoulders. Maybe it is. But if it's not a trap, it's a chance. I walk over to the nightstand where Michael's diary is. I open it to the last page. It reads, "The one who has lost everything is the only one worthy of getting something back. I'm sorry, Ray. If you can." I look out the window. I decide it's night outside and something lights up inside me again. Not anger and not hope. Maybe a thirst for answers. Because this is not the end. This is another end. When you have nothing else, what is left? Ray thought the answer was nothing. But it turned out that there is something. A something that can't be put in a bank account or hidden offshore. Ray spent the week running around, lawyers, calls, emails. Every minute was like waiting for a gift that would never come. And then a short letter from the financial inspection. Concise, dry, like a refrigerator wall. The accounts at the addresses specified in the will are fictitious. The documents are falsified. There are no grounds for returning the assets. We're sorry. Ray sat in the kitchen for a long time. He just stared at the same stain on the ceiling that had once seemed like the shape of Texas. The will was a joke. A compensation is a fraud. Hope was a soap bubble that burst right in his face. He wasn't angry. He wasn't even hurt. Katie found another letter, hidden in the envelope of the will. A small note written in Michael's hand. Ray, I saw myself in you. The same desire to escape from old age, from silence, from the fear of becoming unnecessary. I gave others a dream, but I never believed in it myself. Don't trust anyone, not even yourself, but live, because only those who have already lost everything know what freedom is. 1. Ray packed his bag. There was Michael's diary, a picture of Clara, socks, a knife, and an old map of the United States, all folded. And he couldn't sell the house, it was under arrest. But he didn't want to hold on to it anymore. At dawn, he took to the highway. He gave a thumbs up. The first car stopped in 5 minutes, and the driver was a young man with a shabby hat and a tattoo of "Let It Burn" on his arm. I asked, "Where to?" Ray smiled, and answered honestly, "West." The highway doesn't ask who you are. It just carries you forward. Around every bend, a new face, a new accent, a different smell of coffee. Ray was silent most of the way, looking out the window and thinking, maybe it was meant to be. And sometimes he was picked up by bikers, sometimes by old vans with children. To some he told the truth, to others he told a fairy tale. He was no longer interested in how people saw him. In a motel in Arizona, he wrote on the back of a check. Maybe Michael was the last honest crook in this world, because at least he told me the truth after it was all over. Ray sat on the roof of the motel. He tore the newspaper from his hands. The sun was slowly setting in the red sky. He was not tormented by thoughts of revenge, and he was not gnawed by his conscience, because all boundaries were erased. Only the road remained, and the fact that he was still standing. Freedom is not always about choices. Sometimes it is about the absence of options, about the fact that only you are left, your feet, and the sky above your head. And although there were 28 cents left in my pocket, my heart felt spacious for the first time. The frame freezes. Ray is standing on the roadside. Ahead is the horizon. There is nothing behind him. He is smiling. Or maybe it's tears. We don't know where he is going, or if he is hiding, or looking for something. Maybe he's just leaving, and we don't know how it will end. Maybe the end is just another beginning disguised as defeat. If the story touched you, subscribe. There will be more. There is always something more.